If I had to give this car a single title, I would call it The Moment the End Quietly Began for Imperial. That may sound dramatic, but there is a very real reason behind it. Because starting in 1967, Imperial became more of a Chrysler than it had been at any point in the years before. Not because it suddenly lost its luxury, and not because it became a bad car overnight, but because the one thing that truly separated Imperial from Chrysler finally disappeared. That thing was its unique body-on-frame construction. For decades, Imperial had held on to that architecture as a statement. It was Chrysler's way of saying this was not just a fully loaded New Yorker, not simply a trim level, but a standalone luxury mark with its own engineering identity. While the rest of Chrysler Corporation had already moved to unibody construction years earlier, Imperial stubbornly retained body-on-frame all the way through 1966. But for 1967, Chrysler made a decision. Imperial would now share a unibody platform with the rest of the lineup, along with torsion bars up front and leaf springs in the rear. From that moment on, Imperial began to feel less like a separate brand and more like a beautifully dressed Chrysler. And that trend only accelerated with the all-new Imperial that arrived in 1969, which looked even more closely related to its Chrysler siblings than this 1967 car. What makes this especially interesting is that despite switching to unibody construction, the 1967 Imperial was still astonishingly heavy. Curb weight came in at 5,230 pounds. That is massive by any standard, especially for something that, on paper, should have become lighter. This was a truly portly car, a real heavyweight, loaded with mass and presence. Naturally, you would expect a car this heavy to feel slow and sluggish, but surprisingly, it was not. Under the hood sat Chrysler's 440 cubic-inch V8, producing 350 horsepower and designed to run on premium fuel. With that engine, the Imperial could move from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 9 seconds. That does not sound impressive today, but in 1967, for a car weighing well over 2.5 tons, it was genuinely respectable. Still, before talking more about performance, you really have to understand the design philosophy behind this car, because that is where the deeper story lies. The 1967 Imperial was styled by a team led by Elwood Engel. Engel had come to Chrysler from Ford in 1961 after losing the race for Vice President of Design to Gene Bordenat when George Walker retired. And when you look at this Imperial, and even the 1964 Imperial before it, Engel's influence is unmistakable. Engel arrived at Chrysler after Virgil Exner, whose Imperials of the early 1960s were dramatic, flamboyant machines with podded headlamps and towering tail fins. Engel believed in something very different. He was a designer of restraint, flat surfaces, strong proportions, and quiet confidence. He was also one of the key figures behind the 1961 Lincoln Continental, a car widely regarded as one of the most elegant American designs ever produced. That Continental featured flat fenders, flat quarter panels, minimal ornamentation, and absolutely precise execution. Imperial 1961 under Virgil Exner emphasized drama, fins, and visual movement. Imperial 1967 under Elwood Engel emphasized flat surfaces, proportion, and controlled elegance. When you look at the 1967 Imperial, you can clearly see the Continental's influence. The body surfaces are flatter, the overall stance is more upright, and, perhaps most importantly, you see what is often called the Continental roof line. This refers to how the A-pillars and C-pillars are set inward from the widest point of the body, creating a subtle shoulder between the glass and the outer door skin. The 1961 Continental introduced this idea to the market, and Engel brought it with him to Chrysler. It gives the car a sense of solidity and formality, making the body feel like it wraps around the greenhouse instead of the other way around. From a styling standpoint, the 1967 Imperial is neither revolutionary nor ultra-conservative. It is simply tasteful. It feels very much like Chrysler was trying to broaden the car's appeal. Earlier Imperials were beloved by design enthusiasts, but could be polarizing to the general public. This car feels like an effort to attract a wider audience, while also reducing costs. And once again, that shift to a shared unibody platform accomplished both goals, even if it diluted Imperial's identity in the process. At the front, the design is confident and restrained. The quad-square headlamps sit recessed within the grille, giving the face a strong, composed expression. There is a subtle resemblance to the Continental grille, though it is clearly its own design. Centered proudly is the black Imperial lettering, reinforcing the brand's presence. Moving to the side, you immediately notice those flat fender and quarter panel profiles. Unlike the Continental, this car lacks a chrome molding along the upper body line, but it instead features a large chrome strip low along the rocker panel. That bright work highlights subtle sculpting in the lower body, adding depth without excess decoration. The 1961 Continental relied almost entirely on smooth, sheer surfaces. The 1967 Imperial added gentle creases and lower sculpting while maintaining restraint. One of Engel's strongest design beliefs was his hatred of taper. General Motors frequently tapered the front and rear of their cars, a look championed by GM styling chief Bill Mitchell. Engel despised it. He wanted cars to appear upright and solid, not pinched. When he lacked the budget or time to fully redesign the 1964 Chrysler, he cleverly added small fins to disguise the taper of the deck lid. That philosophy carried directly into the Imperial. The car's sides feel straight and confident, reinforcing its formal presence. At the rear, the Continental roofline effect becomes even more apparent, with the C-pillars pinched inward from the body sides. The rear three-quarter view is arguably the car's best angle. The quarter panels form a sharp, vertical blade shape that terminates in massive bumper end caps. Imperial advertising of the time claimed these elements protected the car from parking damage, allowing components to be replaced individually. Whether or not that mattered in practice, visually it made the car look substantial and well protected. The full-width taillight assembly plays a crucial role here. The roof and rear glass are tall, which could make the car appear narrow from certain angles. The horizontal taillight visually stretches the rear, restoring balance and emphasizing width. Tall greenhouse alone would make the rear look narrow. The full-width taillight restores proportion and stance. Inside, handsome is the perfect word. This is not a soft or delicate interior. It is formal, masculine, and clearly aimed at mature luxury buyers of the era. Interestingly, the side glass is relatively flat, which is notable because the 1957 Imperial had introduced curved side glass to the industry. By 1967, Chrysler intentionally reversed course, favoring a more upright, architectural look consistent with Engel's philosophy. While Chrysler may have economized in some areas, the interior materials and craftsmanship were not among them. Real wood, leather, and cloth are used throughout. The wood dashboard is authentic and beautifully finished. Even better, the wood flows into the door panels at the passenger side, integrating the power window, lock, and seat controls into the design rather than treating them as afterthoughts. Standard Chrysler models offered comfort and features. Imperial emphasized material richness and integrated design. The Lucite steering wheel adds a period-correct touch of elegance. By this time, Chrysler had abandoned its push-button torque-of-flight controls in favor of a column shifter, still paired with the excellent 727 torque-flight transmission. The horizontal speedometer sweeps downward, accompanied by a full set of gauges, reinforcing the car's serious, engineered feel. One especially refined detail is the use of hidden panels. The radio, ashtray, and other controls sit behind wood-faced doors, allowing the dashboard to remain visually clean when not in use. This is a luxury approach rarely seen today, but it gives the interior a calm, composed appearance. The seating is equally impressive, with brocade and leather upholstery, a rich green color palette, and thoughtful details like casket-style door handles, metal rear armrests, and individually adjustable front seat armrests. Everything communicates expense and care. In terms of driving refinement, Imperials were genuinely a step above other Chrysler products. They used additional sound deadening and, in some cases, unique suspension components. Owners frequently noted how much quieter and smoother Imperials were compared to top-trim Chryslers like the New Yorker, even when sharing the same 440 V8 drivetrain. This mattered greatly during a period when Chrysler struggled with quality perception. Under the hood, the story is straightforward. The sole engine offering was the high-compression 440 cubic-inch V8, producing 350 horsepower. It delivered abundant torque and a satisfying exhaust note. 9 seconds to 60 may not sound thrilling today, but in 1967, for a 5,200-pound luxury car, it was more than respectable. Chrysler used a unique V-twin air-temp compressor. Ford favored York two-cylinder units. GM relied on the 6-piston A6 compressor. So the real question surrounding the 1967 Imperial is not whether it was luxurious or well-built. It clearly was. The question is whether the move toward shared platforms was a necessary evolution or the beginning of the loss of Imperial's soul. Would you have chosen this Imperial in 1967? Or would you have gone with Cadillac, Lincoln, or even an earlier Imperial that still stood apart? Let me know what you think.